Hey folks, my name is Terrasol and today I'm going to be showing you how to get custom meshes into your Trailmakers mods. So the first step is you actually want to create a mod. So if you go ahead and head to your Trailmakers mods folder, this is usually located under your program files, Steam, Steam apps, Common, Trailmakers and mods. So a quick way to get here is to go to Steam, go here and right click on your Trailmakers and click Properties. And then go down to installed files and browse. This will take you to a directory of your Trailmakers install. So from here, you can go ahead and click mods and this will get you to the mods folder. So from within your mods folder, you want to create a new folder. This will be your folder for your new mod. So we'll just call this custom mesh import. So once you've created the folder, you want to create a file called main.lua. This can be done using a text editor such as Notepad, or you can use a more code-focused editor such as Visual Studio Code. If we just go ahead and bring up Visual Studio Code is free, and we'll just create a new file, just a basic file, and we'll just go here and click Save As. We'll head to our mods folder, and then from here we'll go and head to our newly created folder called Custom Mesh Import. Now from here, we'll set our file type to Lua, like so, and we'll give it the name main.lua. Now this is important that your file name is called main.lua, so we'll go ahead and click save there. So this has now created a Lua file in your mods folder. Now is the time where we will go and create the mesh for your mod. Now you can use programs such as Blender, which is a free modeling software, or if you're not familiar with modeling software, you can use a program such as Blockbench. It's personal choice really, or if you don't want to go ahead and create a mesh, you can actually find meshes on the likes of Sketchfab. Just remember to credit the original creator, or you can actually find meshes on the Unity Asset Store if you search by 3D and then free assets. I will show later how to get the meshes out of Unity so that you can actually use them with Trailmakers. So let's just create a basic cube mesh for now using Blender, and you can actually go up here and click add mesh and then cube. This is just a really basic cube. So what you can do here is we click on the cube, you can go file, export, and we want to export as an .obj. Now it's important to export as an object because object is the only format of meshes which Trailmakers supports. So we go ahead and click export, and we can actually click selected only. And now you want to browse to your mods folder for your newly created mod. So this is the custom mesh import folder which you've created. So we head here and we can actually call our mesh a name. So let's just call this cube.obj and we'll just export. Now if we just close Blender, we should now have a cube.obj in this folder. Now you can ignore this MTL file because Trailmakers doesn't use material files. So if you want to go ahead and open your Lua source file which you created earlier. Now within here you're going to need a couple of lines to actually get your mesh into the game. So if we go ahead and head to the mods folder for Trailmakers. So in here I've actually got a documentation mod text document here. Now this is generated by a mod which is included with Trailmakers. So if you go ahead and head in game, and if we go up to test zone, so within test zone, if you press escape, sessions, and activate mods, and then you want to go ahead and activate the documentation mod. This only needs to run for a couple of seconds, and you can then go ahead and untick that again. And then if we just go ahead and minimize, what this has done is it's basically generated this documentation mod document. So within this documentation mod document, it's got all the functions which can be used by the modding API. So the two functions which we're interested in here at the moment is the add mesh function. So we need this function and we need another function, spawn custom object. If you notice here, there's actually a couple of spawn custom object functions. We've got a rigid body one, we've got a just spawn custom object, and we've got a concave one. The rigid bodied one is one which the physics apply to the object. The spawn custom object one is one where physics don't apply to the object and it doesn't have concave collisions. So for example, if you made like a donut, you wouldn't be able to actually go through the center of the donut, whereas if it was a spawn custom object concave, then you would. So for now, we're just going to use the basic one, which is the spawn custom object. Let's go ahead and add the mesh first. So we'll go add search to get the add mesh function. So this is tm.physics.addMesh. So the file name is expecting a string. This will be your name of your object file, which is in your mods folder. So we called this cube. So you can do cube.obj. And then the resource name is what the rest of your code refers it to. So we'll call this the cube. So that's us telling the game to add the mesh as the cube to your mod. All this does is it just loads the mesh for you and anyone else who has joined your server, for example. So once we've done that, we want to actually go and spawn the mesh. So as we said, we're going to use tm.physics.spawn custom object. So we go ahead and place this down. You get to have a position, a mesh name, and a texture name. Now, we know what the mesh name is because this will be the cube which we specified above in the add mesh. So for texture name, this is if you want to give your custom object a texture. To do that, we'll actually go back to our documentation and you'll actually notice there's a tm.physics.addTexture. So if we go ahead and grab this, we can actually use this. So we add the mesh first and then we'll add the texture. So this works a similar way. We haven't actually created a texture yet. So we'll just call it cubetext.png. Now your textures can be PNG or JPEG. It's completely up to you. And then we'll give it a resource name like we have done before. So we'll just call this cube texture. So we've actually, there we go, we've added that texture. So we can go here, texture name, and we can tell it, well, it's using cube texture, which is defined in the add texture above. So this just leaves the position. So to get the position, we'll actually need to use tm.vector3.create. This then creates a vector3, which the game then uses for positions. So we'll do tm.vector3.create, and then these will be your x, y, and z coordinate. We'll just do 0. I believe the test zone starts at 299, so we'll do 300, and then we'll do 0. So what that's done is we've added the mesh, we've added a texture for the mesh, and then we've actually spawned the custom object. So we haven't actually created the texture yet, so we'll go ahead and create the texture. So to create a texture, you can use a program such as Paint.net or Photoshop. Paint.net is free. So you want to keep the resolution relatively low, because if you've got a higher resolution, then your file size is going to be a lot bigger, which is not good for mods when they're loading textures, because they take forever to load otherwise. So we'll just create a basic texture here. We'll do 500 by 500. And this texture is just going to be a basic color. So we'll just pick, I don't know, green. And so we've got a green texture here. Now, if you're using PNG, you can actually choose how shiny texture is. And this is linked to your opacity. So if we go ahead and change the opacity here to like, I don't know, 5 or 10. Like this will then make the texture a lot rougher and less shiny when in game. If you want it to be shiny, then you don't need to change the opacity, or you could use JPEG. So we'll go ahead and do that, and we'll go ahead and save this. Now we'll go ahead and head to our mods folder and the new one we've just created, the custom mesh import, and then we'll go ahead and create our file name, which is what we called cubetext, and we'll go ahead and save that. As you can see, it's only 2.1 kilobytes, is good. So we've got this texture. So once back in game, we can go ahead and head to our session options and go ahead and enable our new mod, which is the custom mesh import. So there we go. We actually have our cube here now. So that's it in terms of getting a basic mesh you've created into the game. You can also use a program such as TrailEdit, which lets you spawn meshes and build maps around them. So you would just put your texture names in here and your model names in here, and they'd have to be in the same folder as TrailEdit. So in terms of Sketchfab, you can go ahead and search for a mesh. It needs to be low poly, relatively low poly, otherwise the game will either freeze or it will take forever and ever for your mesh to load, which isn't ideal. So try and keep it to low polygon and mesh. So if you go ahead and set the licenses on here to be generally these ones, you'll then get the free assets rather than the paid assets. And then we'll find a mesh, which we're going to use. So in here, we've got this Animal Crossing house here. So we'll go ahead and look at this. So this is only 4K triangles, which is relatively low. And we'll go ahead and download this. So we'll click download, And with Sketchfab, it's only going to offer you the FBX format, USDZ, GLTF, GLB, and as you know, none of these formats are supported by Trailmakers. Trailmakers only supports object files. But what we can do is we can go ahead and download the FBX format, and then we actually have the source file here, this is FBX, and the textures here. So what we'll do now is we can actually use an online converter to convert FBX to object. And I tend to use this one, which is the ASPOS FBX to object. You can just import it into Blender and just re-export it as object file format, whatever is easiest. I just do this way sometimes. So we'll grab our source file from the Animal Crossing here, and we'll go ahead and click convert. So we now have an object file. So we'll go ahead and copy this object file into our new folder for our mod, which is the custom mesh import folder. And we'll just rename this file to house object. So now it's called house object. So we'll go ahead and grab the texture next, which will be under the base color. As you can see, this file actually uses two textures, so you might need to use a different method to combine the textures, but that requires using Blender. So as you can see, it's a 1.8 meg texture, which is pretty big in terms of Trailmakers. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and open this texture, and we'll set its opacity so it's not shiny. And then we'll go ahead and resize it from 4096 pixels to 1024. And then we can go ahead and save this to our folder with our mod. It's the mesh import. And we'll save it as a PNG. And we'll call this house text. So now we'll head back in game, and we'll go to the state menu and session options. And we'll go ahead and enable our custom mod. And this should then go ahead and spawn our custom mesh, which is the house. So as you can see, the house is actually spawned on my head right now, which isn't ideal. So you want to go ahead and head to your session options and go ahead and open Workshop and grab the Fly mod by Ridiculous. This is an incredibly useful mod. It allows you to no clip through objects. So we'll just go ahead and grab this, enable it, and fly out of the object. So actually, we've actually spawned the house here. So the texture is a little messed up because it actually uses two textures, but if this was a one texture model or you combine the textures using Blender, then this would be a non-issue. So it's a little big, so what we can do about that is head on over to our main lure file, and we can actually transform and set the scale of the mesh so it's not so big. So in our lure file, we can actually go ahead and we can actually declare this spawn custom object and give it an ID. So we'll call this a house, and then we can actually do a house.getTransform.setScale, and you can define a straight up number here, or you can define a TM vector 3 like we did up here, so you can actually scale it by different axes. Just for now, we're just going to just use the single value scale. So we'll make this 0.1 and see what that does. So now that we're back in game, you can actually see that house is a lot more of a reasonable scale now, rather than being completely massive. So yeah, that's pretty much it in terms of getting a custom mesh straight into Trailmakers from an online resource. So for Unity, you can actually go to the asset store and then find your model which you're going to use. And once you've found that model, you can then import it into Unity, and then you'll also need to grab the Scene Object Exporter tool. So what this does is once you've got your object model in Unity, you can actually then just click on your object and then go up to File, Export, and then Object, and this will export it in the correct format for Trailmakers. And that's basically how you get your mesh from Unity straight into Trailmakers. So in terms of combining textures, there's actually a guide on the Trailmakers modding Discord, which shows you how to use the Material Combiner Blender add-on to actually combine all the textures into a single texture atlas, which you can then use for Trailmakers. So that's pretty much it in terms of getting custom meshes into Trailmakers and then within your mods. So thanks again for watching, guys. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that like button. Peace out.